for people who. All right, folks, welcome. November 20th, 2021, coming off the eclipse. It's 3:03 p.m. Eastern here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm really excited. I haven't met with this group in a long time. A lot of eclipse energy and feelings have come up for me around this group. This was kind of one of those. Let me do one more thing before I think about collapsing it. And that eclipse yesterday really helped me release some of the stinging bitterness around some circumstances within that I experienced with this group. For it just to be direct, I think it's important. And as I'm learning now, the Libra has to step aside and just be direct. When I started this particular group, the RDU Triangle Astrology in 2018, there was a young woman who's an NC State student. She saw me do a workshop in Portland at one of their astrology conferences. And she said, "Oh, I live in North Carolina. This is, right around the time I was moving to this area." She says, "When I get there, I want to connect with you." So she reached out to me and she came to the meetup and was like, "Wow, this is amazing." She decided to copy and paste the entire meetup description, everything, and create her own meetup. And then she went the extra mile and went to NC State and told them that she's working directly with me to host meetup groups in the area, and basically said that she has come up with all these ideas. And so I didn't know about it. Someone at Portland School of Astrology reached out to me because I guess her grad school program needed paperwork proving that she was working with this astrologer that she said she's working with. So that was like the sort of Mars and Capricorn in my chart eclipse event of, recognition and protecting your work and all that, but more so just some people don't recognize what intellectual property is. So that's been my eclipse event. But and I think the full circle of it, just releasing it to its highest good and recognizing that there is still a lot of life left in this work, and I don't have to collapse the group just because of one bad experience. Does anyone want to share their eclipse event or things that they're releasing or have released through this eclipse season?
Mine's much more mundane. I decided to paint the interior of my condo, and oh my God, what amount of work. Mine is 10th, 4th house.
Oh, yeah.
And you start painting, you realize, oh, I got to do that. Oh, I got to do that. Oh, this is a lot worse than I thought. Oh,
there you go. Nice. Well,
much more mundane.
I'll take the mundane. Mine is 12th, 6th house. So just,
energetically,
it's intense, hidden enemies and your own ways you self-sabotage yourself. Anyone else before we jump into this topic? This one's going to breeze by. It's so simple. And when you read Chris's book and all these different books, they have I'm talking 40 pages of historical context and then 3 pages of the meat and potatoes. And so I've condensed the meat and potatoes so you can apply it right here and right now.
I've had a lot of energy around my career and work.
Awesome. So it's happening. You're a Capricorn rising. So this eclipse is happening in your 5th and your 11th house, so 5th house axis. So creative stuff and 11th house being like the networking within work. Any other things you want to share with this group?
Yeah, I mean, just, I came to a realization on which way I want to present my creative work in my 11th house through my career. And just, understanding that I can blow it all up and have a different approach.
Nice.
It's hard to walk away from what you've been working on and get out of the tunnel, but I had a huge spark of movement and a lot of success and just letting it go and starting over.
Love it. What about you, Camille? I don't know if have you ever been to any of the workshops? Probably not, because I haven't done anything with this group in a while, but welcome.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. This is my first time being at the workshop. And this was actually happening also in my 11th and 5th houses. I'm a Cancer rising, so I kind of consider joining this group kind of being 11th house stuff and kind of just putting myself out there, finding more like-minded people. So thank you for having me.
Awesome, welcome, thank you. And Maria, it's happening in your 12th and 6th house as well, Sag rising. So anything for you?
I can pinpoint at the moment. I just kind of been all over the place.
Okay. Yeah, that's sounds like 12th house matters with me. Just, sometimes just an overwhelming feeling as well, and emotionally and with mental health. So awesome. Let's jump into this. So the purpose of today's workshop is to judge one's general success and happiness and the ease with which one's life moves by looking at the triplicity lords of Sect light. What this technique does is break the life up into 3 chunks of time. From there, we can talk about those who have difficult beginnings but challenging endings, and challenging beginnings but difficult endings, or any other combination one can think of. So Valens, a 2nd century astrologer, if you're not familiar with traditional Hellenistic astrology, he recommends that we look at only the first 2 lords of the triplicity and use the 3rd in a supporting role so that the life is broken up into 2 chunks. And then that 3rd ruler sort of oversees or supports the first 2. But another technique is to use the 3 lords as signifying 3 chunks of life. And as you look at your life in your chart, you can decide how things have been going and which technique works for you. So we're going to look at both of them today. All right, in order to do this technique, you must know what the essential dignities are, just basic, core foundational astrology. And so that's why I said it's for intermediate, advanced. But if you don't know, please take a snapshot, take a picture of this. You need to know what planet rules what sign, what planet is exalted in what sign, what planet it's in its detriment, and in its fall in which signs. And again, because we're using traditional, the outer planets are not used for this technique. All right, so essential dignities, domicile or rulership. A planet is in its domal dignity when it is positioned in the sign it rules. This is the strongest of the 5 essential dignities of a planet. So for example, the sun rules Leo, moon rules Cancer. Those planets would be considered in their domicile in those signs. Now in detriment, a planet is said to be in detriment or exile when it is positioned in the zodiac sign opposite the sign it rules over, which has its domicile. When a planet is in detriment, it is said to be not comfortable in that sign and tend to operate with the least strength. So for example, the sun is in detriment in Aquarius, the opposite of Leo. The moon is in detriment in Capricorn, the opposite of Cancer. Easy peasy, right? Last one, exalted and fall. So the exaltation is a place of awareness, whereas the fall is a position of weakness concerning the function of the planet. The sign positioned directly opposite a planet's sign of exaltation is its fall. So for example, the sun is exalted in Aries and the moon is exalted in Taurus. An astrological fall is the sign directly opposite a planet's sign of exaltation in its fall. As the exaltation is a place of awareness for the planet, the fall is a position of weakness concerning the function of the planet, including everything else the planet represents. So for example, the sun is considered in its fall in Libra. The moon is considered in its fall in Scorpio. And when you think about it, it makes sense because Aries is assertive, bold, pioneering, right? It just knows what it wants. It's forward thinking, action without thought. The sun in Libra is more people pleasing and, the politician. It's going to try to smooth things over, and it's not going to act from its own sort of self-assertion, and it may be indecisive. So that's how you can sort of put pieces together if you're new to this. So if you were born with a planet in fall or detriment in your birth chart, it may be an area you have to work a little harder at, or a place in your life where you must overcome struggles, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. How you play the cards dealt determines the outcome of the game. So please don't today in this workshop, if you discover that you have, the moon in Scorpio, that you suddenly just feel overwhelmed and beaten down by life. And I think, Brian, don't you have moon in Scorpio?
No, but I have Mercury in Sagittarius, and it is certainly, it's in detriment. And I have struggled all my life with dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I mean, from as early as I can remember, I was a good student. I would hand in a paper and the teacher, give it back to me and say, Brian, you didn't, did you proofread it? And I go, why would I proofread it? It's been a struggle, if you will, but I'm aware of it. I have to make a special effort to look at things and go, is the I dotted? Is the T crossed?
Yeah, to look at the polarity sign Gemini and get the finite little details versus just the spark notes. I totally understand But
I think it's all overblown. The big picture is much better.
there you go. There you go. So just to show you, Brian's living with Moon in Sagittarius now. In all his years of life, he can tell you just navigate ways of working with planets in their detriment, in their fall. Yeah. All right. So calculation for this technique. So it is recommended that we use the rising time of the sign of the Triplicity Lord to judge the number of years that each Lord has dominion. So that's where we get into why you need to use that link and look down at the ascension table. The use of the rising times of the signs is very old, and it amounts to the number of degrees that pass the midheaven in the time it takes the whole of the relevant sign to rise in the east. So you're not just looking at your ascendant, you're looking at the ascendant changing from the midheavens position over the course of your life. And it gets very detailed. There are triplicity lords for every planet of your chart, but we're just focusing on the sect light triplicity lords. So everyone here know if you have a day chart or a night chart, right?
Yep.
Excellent. Raina's got a night chart. Camille, what is are you day or night?
So my sun is in the 7th house and it's right on the cusp, but I consider myself a day chart because it's like right above the horizon. It's like a degree or two.
And have you sort of played around with looking at Mars and Saturn and trying to just sort of seeing what planets have been more of your your nemesis?
Yeah, I have Mars in Pisces and Jupiter in Aries for a day chart. So I would consider those like a bit more influential than like Saturn in Taurus and my Venus in Sagittarius.
Awesome. Perfect. So you're going to be an awesome example of a cusper who, kind of on that borderline. So here are a few quick rules, right? We love rules, don't we? I do. I have Saturn in the 1st house. I love rules. So these 3 planets will provide the general support or foundation for the native. Let's go back here where I'm getting this information from. Most of this, if you look at Chris Brennan's book, page 495 to 508, this is where some of these quotes are coming from. So these 3 planets will provide the general support or foundation for the native, right? If the triplicity rulers are poorly situated, then the native's life will be unstable, unfortunate, and undistinguished. Now that sounds like a whole lot of doom, 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 right? That's the thing about Hellenistic astrology. If you got thin skin, you don't go thinking that your life is going to suck now because you're in a bad zodiacal releasing period or you're in a challenging, triplicity ruler. It's just a broad stroke generalization. So another rule here, the angular places are considered good or strong houses 1, 4, 7, and 10. The succeedent places, 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 11th are interpreted as moderate. And the cadent places, houses 3, 6, 9, and 12 are interpreted as negative or bad. Those are going to be your heavy houses, right? If the first ruler is well placed and the second is poorly placed, then it's thought that things will go well for the first part of life, but poorly later on. Conversely, if the first ruler is poorly placed and the second is well placed, then the first part of life will be difficult and the second part will go smoothly. Now, if both rulers are well placed, then the native will be fortunate from beginning to end. If both rulers are poorly placed, then the native will be unfortunate throughout their life. And see, that's my thing with Hellenistic astrology. I can't get that deep into that part of it because it just seems sort of like you're sentencing someone to a life of doom. And if you receive that, if your subconscious absorbs that, you can manifest and create that as a part of your reality. So finally, note the placement and condition of the planet ruling the sign the triplicity lord is in, basically the dispositor. If your triplicity the first triplicity lord is the moon and it's in Virgo, you want to note the condition of Mercury in your chart because that can overtake the condition of your entire triplicity sect. All right, let's start with our first example. The lovely Raina has kindly allowed us to use her chart. So if we look at this chart closely, I'm just going to call on people so we can make this interactive. We see that she has a night chart, right? How do we know that? Because we know the sun is below the ascendant-descendant axis. And so we're looking at the moon as her sect light. And so the moon is in Virgo. So based on this table below, Brian, can you tell us what her 3 triplicity rulers are based on this table?
Okay, let's see. Moon in Virgo, and Virgo is Earth, and where we got that right there. So her day ruler is Venus, or
She's
night
a
ruler, right? I'm looking at. Oh, oh, wait a minute. You got this broken up a little bit differently. Oh, I see. Oh, right, because night, Moon, Venus, and Mars.
excellent. So remember now, if you're a day chart, you're going to look over here. If you're a night chart, you're going to look over here. And the triplicity lords are separated by element. So the fire element, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, the earth element, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, the air element, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, and the water element, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Very easy. Mhm.
So hi, just for in case someone is looking at a separate, I have a, I went and ran and got my little notebook here that has planetary dignities, but it doesn't separate day and night. You have to do that mentally. So when I was
Yeah.
looking, so I would have to start with the, the nocturnal ruler, then go over to the left to the day ruler, that type. Just thought
Yeah.
I'd throw it out there.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there's a bunch of different tables on Google, and this one I found to be most helpful for me with it separated like this to keep it simple.
I like that.
And I've posted it in the group in the photo, so you can find it there. So then the next step is we know that this person's triplicity lords, if we separate their life into 3 parts or separate it into 2 and use Mars as a supporting planet for the first 2, we know it's going to be Moon, Venus, Mars. So keep that in your mind, Raina. So the next thing is, how many years will the first triplicity lord, the Moon, be dominant according to the chart below? So this is the rising ascension time that we talked about in that earlier slide. Everyone's is going to be different, because everyone has a different rising sign. And that's why you have to cast that ascension table and use the AstroSeek, scroll down to your ascension times to find it. So the first planet being the Moon in Virgo, we look for Virgo and we look for the rising time, 39.61 degrees. So that means the first 39 years of this person's life, the Moon is the operant triplicity lord. So let's stop there. I have found in looking at celebrity charts, family charts, and all that, and client charts, that the first triplicity lord tells us a lot about the childhood conditioning of the person, like what was going on that created, molded, and sort of crafted them. And so with this person having Moon in Virgo, what house can we say, is it angular, succedent, or cadent? Camille, can you tell us, let me go back. Is this, which house is her Moon in as far as placement, angular, succedent, or cadent?
So that is the 12, 11, 10, 9th house. So that is a cadent house.
Excellent. And so based on what we know about cadent houses, what can you tell us about cadent houses?
That there's, a lot of like problem solving in that house. So like,
obstacles, right?
solution based, yeah.
Definitely. So again, houses 3, 6, 9, 12 are going to bring your challenges, obstacles. It's going to, if, as they say, if it didn't kill you, it made you stronger. So the Moon in Virgo would say, and I'm going to ask Raina to chime in here, would say this is the perfect student, right? 9th house being learning, higher learning education. She was an early college candidate, but she lacked the home support. And we look at the dispositor, Mercury in Aries, and the condition of that dispositor in the 4th house. She didn't have the home support to maintain success as a young adult. Raina, would you like to chime in on what that was like for you?
Yeah, thanks for choosing me as the guinea pig here. And good job, Camille. I don't know if I'd be confident to answer the questions you answered, so I'm impressed. But so yeah, as a child, I was in college preparatory courses. I had access to the International Baccalaureate program from middle school through high school. I did post-secondary in high school. And it really just kind of all fell apart because I was kind of just doing it, I don't know, like naturally just finding these opportunities, interested in it. It really wasn't affecting me that my home life wasn't stable. But the older I got, the instability of my home life really had an impact on my educational experience, just in the sense that like no one was really supporting me or even caring what I was doing. So the motivation and the focus wasn't there. And I wasn't able to really develop discipline skills because I was just, doing what I wanted to do as a young adult. So
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I like Camille's use of the word problem solving. And so you can transmute that into your greatest, I would say, opportunity, ninth house matters, through like figuring out where the hole is, where the problem, where the cracks in it are. And you've done that, I think, successfully. And even now, her son is in an early college program. It's the best school in the country, Wake STEM Early College. And she gets to sort of relive that and be very hands-on in his experience as well. And so I would say, to just quickly, the next triplicity Lord Venus, after age 39 for 20 years, it looks like it's going to be a sweet gig. Camille, what house, angular, cadent, or angular, succeedant, or cadent, is her Venus?
That's going to be 5th house, so that is a succeedant house.
Excellent. And so what do we know about succeedant? Is it moderate? What would you say about it?
That is moderate, yeah.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, let's move on to the last little section here. All right. So just like we've been breaking it down, Moon 39 years, Venus 20 years, Mars 28 years for this person. What is the condition of the moon? It's in a cadent house, ninth house. So I'll put sad face there to make it simple. What is the dispositor of that moon? Mercury in Aries. And just based on the condition of that Mercury. So number one, it's the apex of her yod, the two inconjuncts at the apex there. So this could turn out to be her greatest success story. And ultimately, in my experience, she can turn this whole energy around. And then it is angular, and it's the 8th place from fortune. What do we know about the 8th sign from any sign, Brian?
Well, I only know it as the 8th sign, as in your typical, chart, is a challenging house, actually. But it can be other people's, it's inheritance, it's, death. It's if that's the route you're going. I don't know if that's what you're asking.
So the 8th sign from any sign, the 8th house from any house, is the unfolding of that house, the unfolding of that sign, the transformation, the death, the rebirth of it. And so if her fortune is in Virgo and she has Mercury in Aries, in her, the transformation of her, like changing her ideology, her thinking around her childhood conditioning, not seeing it as a limiting factor, I would say that would be the Phoenix rising, the transmutation of that 8th from fortune, and it would turn into her fortune. That's, I guess, how I would look at it.
Are you literally going around? Are you doing would you go to the 12th house because that's the 8th from the 4th?
Yeah, so I'm just doing it for, I look for the position of fortune just out of habit. And so because I know that this is the dispositor of her first triplicity Lord, I want to see where it is in relationship to fortune. So that's what I did. And it's just something I didn't do it for all charts, but I just happened to notice it for hers because I did a whole talk about 8th houses when I was doing Scorpio. The 8th from any sign, or the 8th from any house, is the transformation, the unfolding of that house. So what will we say about the broad stroke for the first 39 years of this person's life? Camille, can you give us a summary of what that broad stroke would be like?
That she's going to have a lot of obstacles to overcome when it comes to her early education and organizational skills, and finding like emotional stability in that as well.
Nice. I love
that. That would be correct. It has been a army crawl to the finish line, but I'm 35 now, so I think that I'm getting to, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's definitely been problem solving.
Yeah. If we could just speed up and get to, to that 39th year to see what'll happen. I wish we all just had a button to press. So where our next example celebrity chart is going to be Adele, right? So we look at, after listening to her recent album, I said, let me cast this woman's chart. And her birth time was accurate on AstroSeek. And so She has a day chart. We see that. And so we look for the sun's position. The sun is in Earth. And so based on this table below, Maria, can you tell us if we're looking for day rulers, Earth, what are her triplicity rulers based on this here? Uh-oh, Maria, did we lose you? You there? Okay. We'll come back to you, Maria. I don't know what's going on, but Reina, can you tell us based on if you look at the day rulers and you look for Earth, what are her triplicity rulers? Uh-oh, your mic isn't unmuted.
I am not good at this. So what did you say? Her
Okay,
son?
so remember we're looking at
Yeah,
the
her
sun.
son's in Taurus,
So
so
she
it's
has
a
a
day
day
chart.
chart.
Yeah, she has a day chart. And so
We're looking for under the day rulers, we're looking for the Earth triplicity, which would be Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. So what are the 3 day rulers for her?
so is it Venus, the moon, and is that Mars? Yep.
Yes, excellent. So remember, the reason why it's a day chart is because this is the ascendant, right? So if we run our hand across to the descendant, that would be the ascendant descendant axis, the horizon. So above the horizon, if the sun is above the horizon, it's a day chart. If the sun is below the horizon, it's a night chart. Got it?
Got it. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine. I just want to, I don't want anyone left behind. I want to make sure everyone gets this stuff, you know. So as Raina said, Venus, Moon, and Mars are going to be her triplicity lords. So the first triplicity lord is Venus. It will be dominant according to the chart below. So we look for Venus in her chart. She has Venus in Gemini. The first 26 years of life will be Venus in the 12th house, conjunct Chiron. Well, can you take a guess as to how this person's first 26 years of life has gone? And I think based on her talking about her Saturn return with Oprah and how she has the tattoo of Saturn on her arm now, she is coming out, emerging from the fog. So Adele described her childhood as socially deprived. Adele's mother sacrificed her own artistic ambitions to give her access to music and art resources. They lived in a rundown apartment in South London above a discount store. Her father was an absent alcoholic. Those are all 12th house matters. So socially deprived, I thought that was fascinating because she has Mercury, the dispositor or ruler of Gemini, and she has Venus in the 12th house in Gemini. Gemini is typically social, chatty, and to put that in the 12th house would be someone who has to spend a lot of time talking to themselves, I think. So the condition of Venus in her chart, it's in a cadent house. Remember, houses 3, 6, 9, and 12 are cadent, so they're considered. Go ahead, somebody saying something? No? Okay. So they're
Well, I was just going to add that it is really interesting because with that Gemini, they're wanting to socialize, wanting to communicate, and having to be so internalized in the 12th house. If you look at a lot of her like lyrics and the poetry of her lyrics, it's just very interesting on how that emoted there.
Totally, because the 12th house is, creativity. It's that Piscean creativity. So going into yourself, going into the sort of shell of yourself to embrace the writings on the wall, creativity. I imagine it really did inspire a lot of her work. So yeah, so
and I mean, sorry to interrupt. She does have an amazing voice. She has great music, but sometimes you can miss the messages in the lyrics. It's not just like, wow, like, it just, you really have to dig into the deeper messages to really understand what she's saying sometimes.
Totally. So Mercury is in his own sign. So there's one point. And if you were to do this and create a point system for yourself, even better. So there's one point for Mercury being his own sign. However, in that cadent house, the 12th house, it's like being in prison. So he's comfortable in prison. He might have his own furniture, might have his own snacks. I'm imagining he's enjoying the prison library with being in the 12th house. And so these are the faces I use. It's sort of like you're coming and going at the same time. You feel like you're in between. It's not so much good and happy and joyful or pleasant, but out of it, you're like, there's something in this confusion that I can benefit from. So Camille, will you tell us what you would think the first 26 years, broad stroke of this person's life would be like?
I would say spending a lot of time in isolation, learning about yourself, even like without the kind of social aspect that she was yearning for from, her Venus in the 12th house, and Mercury in the 12th, kind of just those two. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for that. So we're gonna do this next one. This is my chart. I don't think I've gotten a chance to in this group share my chart. So we'll go through this. I want to make sure no one's left behind. So I'm gonna give you an opportunity here, Raina, see if you can walk us through at least the first step. So is this a day or a night chart?
The day chart, because the sun is above the horizon.
Awesome. And so what element, air, earth, fire, water, is the sun in?
So the sun is in air.
Excellent. Okay. And so because the sun is in an air sign, and it's in the day rulership placement, we look at this table and we're blocking, just look at this first section here, and we look for air on this portion, and we see Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So what are the 3 triplicity lords for this chart?
Saturn, Mercury, and Jupiter.
Excellent. Awesome sauce. All right. So the first triplicity lord, because Saturn is the first lord, Saturn in Sagittarius, we look for Sagittarius the first 35 years. Mercury is in Libra the next 36 years, and then Jupiter is in Pisces the next 19 years. And there are some people, like, for example, Bob Dylan's chart, where he's got like Pisces, Aries, some of the shorter ascendant times, the shorter ascendants. And he's what, 86 or 87, I think, however old he is. And you're saying it doesn't make sense because he's already passed all the years. That's when you don't go by the actual like timing. You just eyeball separating the life into 3 parts, like you were cutting a slice of pie, and keep it simple for yourself. So for my early childhood conditioning experience, Saturn in the first house, and when you read older astrological texts to tell you, people usually have hard childhoods with Saturn in the first house. And I can tell you this with conviction. My Saturn in Sag placement created a very zealous and fear-based Saturn and insecurity-provoked upbringing centered around religious superstition. I was made to believe harsh things about myself that weren't true. Coming up in a very like, if you miss the bus, you're going to be doing, I don't know how many Hail Marys on if I have to drive you to school, and Our Fathers, and using the rosary. And it was like extremism. Also, it was kind of centered around like fear-based. Someone put a curse on you when you were a baby because of your stepmom did this kind of energy. And that's very zealot Sagittarian. It's like when you believe in things you don't understand. And so the fear operant thinking, and the first house shaping you and your personality and having to like rise out of that. So that's been my personal experience.
Stevie Wonder album, great album.
There you go.
Superstition.
There you go.
You reminded me of it when you said that.
Yeah. So the dispositor of Saturn for me is going to be Jupiter retrograde in Pisces in the 4th house. So that Saturn is sort of pulling or siphoning from that 4th house.
And how
Jupiter.
many years was that, Zai? How many years was that?
The first 35 years.
Oh, 35, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Does that ring pretty true for you?
Yeah, I would say absolutely so. I had to like, overcome, even in the last 2 years, a lot of the conditioning I believed around like what religion is, what spirituality is, and come into my own understanding that there's nothing to fear. And when you operate that whole hippie, it reminds me of the John Lennon Imagine. I think that I've transcended into Imagine from, very superstitious by Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
And I mean, just as someone who's observing it, I mean, you're 35 now. It's just been very interesting. You're right. The last 2 years leading up to this transition into a different period, because you've had to really break down a lot of walls that have defined your existence. And then I think merging your identity with your craft has been a huge journey, and you've completely transformed your practice in the last 2 years.
Totally. So it's 100% accurate with the timing of this Triplicity Lord and going into Mercury over the next year. I can already feel the shift energetically. However,
Ooh, that's nice. In the 11th house.
yeah, I feel like it's this culmination of me writing. I've been writing this book, writing, something, and I just, it's almost like you're capturing pockets of your subconscious that you didn't know you could transcribe. That's what it feels like. So I would say the broad stroke. Let's call on Camille again, because I like the way you used your language around this. What would you say the broad stroke of the first 35 years of this person's life would be like?
I would say just kind of coming into your own beliefs rather than like taking on beliefs that may have been projected onto you.
Cool.
And it's in the first house, so that would kind of like influence your identity over time.
Totes. Loving it. All right. So let's go to our last celebrity chart. We actually have one more, and then we'll look at someone in the group if you all would like to before we close out. So Camille, day chart or night chart?
We have a night chart.
All right. And so what is the element of Sect light for this person?
It's going to be an air sign. And so their triplicity lords are going to be Saturn, Mercury, and Jupiter.
So because it's remember, this is a night chart, right?
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I just said night chart and then I blanked in my head. So
no, that's good. That's perfect. We want to work through the kinks, right? So the moon in Scorpio would be the water triplicity. So what are our water triplicity ones?
Okay, so that would be the moon in Scorpio. So Mars, Venus, and the moon.
Excellent. So you see how she did that? She looked for the water triplicities. She knew this was a night chart, so she went down to Mars, Venus, and the moon. And it's very easy to do that. You kind of want to go, oh, the sun's in Libra. Let me go to Libra, and we can get kind of, confused there. So the first triplicity lord is Mars, right? So Mars, Venus, moon. We go to Mars in this chart. Mars is in Virgo. You look for Virgo. The first 36 years of this person's life will be Mars in Virgo. The next 36 years will be Venus, whereas Venus is in Libra, conjunct Mercury in her domicile in a what house? Angular, succedent, or cadent, Camille?
That's going to be a succedent house.
Excellent. All right, so I've been listening to Will Smith's memoir that was gifted to me by Raina so kindly. Thank you. And I also watched his Worst Shape of My Life documentary on YouTube, and he's finally exposing things that he's never talked about. And his Mars in Virgo said to me about his childhood, based on what he told us, is perfectionist about health and routines. He was raised by a militant and abusive father, turning into his need to create a perfect, hardworking family legacy. His father would have him and his brother lay bricks, one brick at a time, to build a wall outside of the shop he worked. And there was either, I'm sending you on a mission or you're going to die. There's no, you fail the mission. And so everything in his life was a game of, if I tell you to do something, it's done perfectly or you die. And so he kept that in mind as he raised his children to be these perfect sort of Hollywood prototype proteges for his success or his legacy, in essence. And he talks about how his daughter was his greatest teacher, because she decided one day she didn't want to do the music anymore after they'd signed all these contracts and got a record deal. She goes, don't you care that I don't want to do this? And it really hit him that there are emotions and you have to feel. And so that fourth house, Mars, is the natural house of Cancer, the fourth house. It made me think of the Virgo being like the most atheist sign in the zodiac and the suppression of feeling, but Mars being the cutting around that suppression of feeling. So does anyone want to add to what they see with that first triplicity lord in the fourth house in Virgo, Mars in Virgo in the fourth for Will Smith's chart?
This is Maria. I don't really have anything because I stepped away, so I missed a couple of things. But I just finished the book as well, and I had the audio version of it.
Mhm.
Excellent, because there was a lot that I think that he interjected into the audio version that's not may not be into in the written version. But of course, when you pulled him up, and I'm like, thank you, because I can see in his chart, especially with the Virgo and the perfectionist that Virgos are, it makes a whole lot of sense
Yeah.
with the way that he's done things, and um, the point that he adapted that 99% is just as is only as good as zero, or
Right.
the same as zero mentality that he's had up until recently.
Yeah. And he talks about his marriage failure and everything. And even when he was working out, when he was 230 pounds, the worst shape he's ever been in his life, he was in the gym with his friend. He brought along someone who he knew was in worse shape than him, just so he wasn't in the worst shape in the room with his physical trainers. It's like just the ego around it. And so his friend was doing reps on sets, rather, weightlifting. And he said, "How many are you doing?" And the guy said 8. And just because the guy said 8, he had to do 9. So he's always in that competitive, health and routine sort of mindset. So, but thank you for sharing, Maria, your experience with the book. And then lastly, I don't know why I thought of putting this woman in here, but it just came to me. Wendy Williams. She's a blog talk personality, gossip columnist person. Um, she has a night chart. We see that because the sun is below the ascendant descendant axis. And so the moon is going to be our sect light ruler. Her moon is in Scorpio in water. And so if we go to the night rulers, we look for Scorpio down here, Mars, Venus, and the moon, right? And so her first triplicity lord Mars is in Gemini. We look down here for Gemini, the first 28 years of her life. Then Venus in Gemini as well, the next 28 years of life. And then the moon in Scorpio and 38 years. And if we look at this, woman says, "I had a very tortured childhood. My parents and siblings fat shamed me. She went on her first diet in the first grade, and she suffered from a cocaine addiction for more than 10 years of that first 28-year period." So look at the condition of her Mars. And it's in it's not in a necessarily bad house. It's in a moderate house in the 5th house. And it's ruled by Mercury and Leo. And my first thought was the image, right? Mercury and Leo, and being like the flashy, I need to show off and I need to look good because it's about how it looks to other people. And so I imagine her feelings of like unworthiness and undeservingness. When you think of the 5th house of romance and pleasure and play, this person's childhood getting sort of being deprived of the play of childhood because she didn't look a certain way, look like her family members, look like her siblings. And she said she was tall and fat, so she had an odd shape. And this to me kind of shapes the way she views life, and how she is able to drag and completely like bring up sensitive topics of other people, like all these other celebrities, and expose other people's dirt and love to dig and probe and all that, is because she was lacking that like fundamental love as she was developing her creative self, rather. But is there anything anyone else wants to add to Wendy Williams or this chart that they see that
Moon in Scorpio doesn't hurt with the investigative or digging part, that's for sure.
right? Awesome.
And then she's got, that's Aquarius ascendant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Aquarius is, man, they know. And she definitely, acts like she will read a situation, read it, in her own way, and have that try to be the gospel of her gossip.
Yeah, it's a very fixed and rigid thought. And so it's like, this is the way. It's just, how it is. Camille, anything you want to add to Wendy's chart before we go on?
I think I just kind of noticed like her Mars being conjunct her like Venus, and like what you said about image. And I just kind of see like Mercury being in Leo and like Gemini being in her 5th house. So I know it's not technically like mutual reception, but like, I guess just the houses, it kind of reminds me of mutual reception.
Yeah, kind of a supporting. It ends up she ends up becoming a millionaire based on her gossip. The Gemini, her ability to gossip and bring to light other people's stuff. I think that's pretty interesting. All right, so now for the people who don't have their stuff and want me to cast their chart, we can kind of look at what your triplicity lords are. We'll do that next. Otherwise, it's been real. Thank you for joining us. Any questions, comments, or concerns anyone has?
No, would you mind, since I did miss a few things and I know that you'll send me the recording, but would you mind pulling mine up so I can get a quick look at it and
Okay.
know what to pull up to look at it further?
Okay, we'll do that. But yeah, you did miss a good chunk. I called on you a couple times. I was like, what happened to her? No. That's all right. If you enjoyed this, you can support by sending a donation to Cash App, Third Eye's Eye, or Venmo, Zy Gray, or PayPal, thirdeyesyeyeastro@gmail.com. I always appreciate the love and support to continue this work and come up with more topics. This stuff is not that hard. I think it's just made complicated by so many people, but it doesn't have to be difficult. So let's add Maria. We'll look at an example to show you what your triplicity lords are, and then you tell us based on your childhood how accurate you feel it is.
Okay.
All right, I'm just pulling up your chart so I can do it here. We got August 12th, 1964, and 3:15 p.m. is the time we're using. Perfect. And we'll keep that the same. All right. And the reason why we're using this AstroSeek website and not just using astro.com is because I don't know how to access the rising ascension table that we need, because again, everyone's is going to be different based on their time. And also what's cool about this site is it gives you all your perfections for your lifetime up to 100 years. So you can know.
Okay.
All right. So based on your chart, let's do this, 2 windows. Based on your chart, we know you have a day chart. And so we know that the sun is in Leo, right? And so the fire triplicity, let's just throw that up here. This is a good one. So look for the fire triplicity here, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. So it's going to be the sun, Jupiter, and Saturn. All right. So remember that, sun, Jupiter, and Saturn. So you've got the sun in Leo, the first 38 years, sun in Leo. So let's just stop there. In the 9th house for you. So remember how Raina's moon is in her 9th house, and that's her first triplicity lord. For you, it's the sun in Leo in the 9th house. What can you say about your early childhood and like your creative projects or education, and how your philosophy around educations was shaped? Because Leo is in a great position in its own domicile, in its own sign rather, in the 9th house. Well, maybe not necessarily in the 9th house, because that's a cadent house. So there's challenges there with it being in that specific house. But what would you say about your childhood?
Most of my childhood, I'm busy learning different things. And I'd say teenage years, always been intrigued with learning various tasks, taking things apart just to see how it worked and if I could get it back together. I wanted to have multiple skills. I've always wanted to have multiple skills.
I think just what I'm looking for is just what I know about you, and the enterprising or entrepreneurship personality you have is different creative projects. You different, like the beading that you do, the hair braiding, all the different things you do. I think that's the creative expression. Totally
Yes.
the Leo energy there. So that's basically just what we just did with looking at the those first three lords. And so when you put your chart in here, you want to just take a snapshot of this and look for those 3 rulers, the sun, Jupiter, and Saturn. So you have Jupiter. The next would be Jupiter in Taurus, So
Mhm.
Taurus would be 21 years. And then Saturn, you have Saturn in Pisces. That would be the next 17 years after that. And
Okay.
again, we can separate it by the first two and then use this last one as a supporting of the first two. But it would just say to me that the struggle to find yourself, Leo, in your creative projects would be something, because again, the struggle would be that ninth house of
Okay.
like, how is this going to unfold, and what does it really look like as it unfolds? Brian, is there anything else you notice in this chart that maybe you can chime in for Maria?
Well, nice mix with the rising sign, that's for sure. Just being Sag. What else do we got going on there? Moon in conjunct Jupiter. Okay. Just checking things out. What else do we got going on? Oh, Mercury is conjunct your midheaven, so definitely gives you some verbal capabilities there for sure. What do you do professionally?
Let me see. Aside from hairstylist and jewelry designer, I actually at this point work for Amazon, which I'm in the role of a driver trainer, and then I drive for Uber and Lyft.
Okay. That, mercantile, Mercury's root word is mercantile. Sounds like you got, I saw there was a thing with Taurus there with your rulerships too. And I thought when I heard about you're working with the beats and stuff, I thought Taurians are so good with their hands.
Yeah, Jupiter and Taurus.
Yeah.
And that
Jupiter
Mercury.
Taurus. You lucky duck. I got that too. I love my Jupiter and Taurus.
And that Mercury in Virgo is the merchant. Mercury is the merchant. So that Virgo being you needing
it's really quite good. And then you got that Pluto there, which gives you some real penetrating, thinking, if you will.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, and so you got that 6-12 thing going on with the eclipse. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so Maria, remember now, Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, those are going to be your three lords. Take a snapshot of this, and so you can just kind of break down your life into those periods and see, as the different rulers become active for you, what's going on and what role they're playing. But
okay,
cool.
So I've outlived my 3 periods. What does that mean? I'm an alien now?
Well, just like with Bob Dylan, remember his chart, he outlived it in his in his 40s. You would just use like eyeball the time periods. You would kind of look at. I'm assuming that you have some Piscean theme or some ascension in some of yours if you've outlived some of them.
Yeah.
So you would definitely just go ahead and separate your life into 3 parts and see how that plays in, because again, this is a broad stroke. And so I would say do that, or try the other method of, as Valens uses, using the first 2 lords and then the third as a supporting. So separate your life in half and then use that third ruler as supporting the first 2.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. So any questions about anything today?
now how did you get that one chart with the day night?
This?
Not that one, because I see where that's at on
Okay,
the
so this right here,
yes.
this is on, if you could go, I put it in the images under the group description in the group. It's also on Google, but these are triplicity lords. Once you determine if you have a day chart or a night chart, you just separate the 2 sections based on your day or night ruler, and you use this. If you recognize the glyphs here, this is what you would use. So you can do it for your kids and kind of see, what are their triplicity rulers and all that.
Okay.
Cool. All right, Brian, thanks for joining us. All right, y'all. So let me stop that and stop that recording.